All right, ready for another deep dive with me. This time, I thought we could delve into something really chilling, something that's been puzzling folks for over a century.
Sounds intriguing. I'm always up for a good historical mystery.
Well, get this. It's the Peasenhall murder. Ever heard of it?
The name rings a bell, but I can't say I know the details. Refresh my memory.
It's an unsolved case from way back in 1902 in a quiet English village. You know, the kind where everyone knows everyone's business.
Ah, I see where this is going. Small town, secrets, and then bam, murder.
You got it. But here's the twist. There's a theory that points the finger, not at the accused, but at his wife.
Now that's what I call a twist. This is definitely going to be a good one.
Oh, it gets even better. But to really appreciate it, we need to go back to the beginning, to that fateful night in Peasenhall, Suffolk.
Okay, let's set the scene. What was Peasenhall like back in 1902?
Imagine a small village surrounded by farmland. You know, the kind of place where life moves at a slower pace.
I can picture it. Peaceful, quiet, everyone knows their neighbors, the perfect setting for a murder mystery.
Right. And at the center of it all is Rose Harsent, a young woman, only 22 years old, working as a domestic servant. She was involved with the local Methodist chapels, seemed like an ordinary girl next door.
Until the rumors started, I bet.
You know it. And these weren't just any rumors. Oh, no, these were about an alleged affair with the chapel choir master, William Gardner.
Uh-oh. A forbidden romance. In a small village like that? Talk about scandal.
And Gardner wasn't just anyone. You know, he was a respected man, a foreman, a family man.
So this alleged affair would have turned quite a few heads, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It was the talk of the town. In fact, there was even a church investigation into the rumors, though nothing concrete came of it.
I bet Gardner wasn't too happy about that.
He wasn't. There are accounts of him threatening to sue those spreading the gossip.
Wow, so there was definitely tension brewing beneath the surface.
You could say that. But all that drama would soon be overshadowed by something far more sinister, Rose's murder.
Let's talk about the crime itself. How was her body discovered?
Well, picture this. It's June 1st, 1902, a stormy night. Rose's father goes to the house where she worked, and there, in the kitchen, he finds her.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a gruesome scene. Her throat was cut, she had gases on her shoulders, multiple stab wounds, and her nitrous was partially burned.
Oh, my goodness. That's awful. It sounds like a very personal attack, full of rage.
It was brutal. And given the brutality, you'd think there'd be no doubt about it being a murder, right?
Right, of course. But was there another theory?
At first, there was some speculation about suicide.
Really?
Yeah, but the severity and nature of the injuries, plus that attempted burning, quickly led investigators to rule it as murder.
That makes sense. So, with all the rumors of an affair, suspicion immediately fell on William Gardner, I presume.
You bet. Especially when you consider Rose was 6 months pregnant at the time of her death.
Oh, wow. This just keeps getting more complicated.
Right, so you have the affair rumor swirling, plus whatever the police found at the crime scene, all pointing towards Gardner.
What exactly did they find? What kind of evidence linked him to the crime?
That's where it gets a bit tricky. Unfortunately, the sources I've dug up don't give specific details about the evidence.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, but whatever it was, it must have been compelling enough to arrest and charge Gardner with Rose's murder.
Okay, so he was arrested. What happened next? Straight to trial.
He was brought to trial, yeah. But buckle up, because the trials themselves are a whole other chapter in this story. Gardner faced not one, but 2 trials at the Ipswich Assizes, and neither resulted in a clear verdict.
2 trials. And no resolution. That's unusual. Tell me more about these trials. Get this, the first trial took place in November 1902, and it was overseen by a Sir William Grantham.
Fancy name.
Right. So the jury was actually leaning towards guilty, with 11 jurors voting to convict Gardner.
Wow, 11-1, that's almost unanimous.
It was, but there was that one single juror, just one, who disagreed, and that meant they couldn't reach a majority.
Oh man, talk about a hung jury. So what'd they do? Just let him go?
Well, not quite. They decided to try him again.
Oh wow, really? A whole second trial? I bet that doesn't happen very often.
Nope, it's pretty unusual. So the second trial happened in January 1903, just a couple months later, and this time it was overseen by Sir John Compton Lawrence.
Another fancy name. Did they have different jurors this time?
Oh, yeah. Completely different set of jurors. And again, they were split, but get this time the majority actually favored acquittal.
Wait a minute. So the first trial they were leaning towards guilty, and the second trial they were leaning towards not guilty. What? That's crazy.
Yeah, it is a pretty wild turn of events. So, with no clear consensus, the prosecution ended up issuing something called a noli prosequi.
A what? A noli prosequi? Say that 3 times fast. What in the world is that?
Well, basically it means they just dropped the case, they abandoned it.
So Gardner just walked free.
Pretty much. He was never formally acquitted, but he wasn't convicted either.
Man, that's got to be a weird feeling, right? Like you're free to go, but you were never actually cleared of the crime.
Definitely imagine the weight of that, always wondering if people still suspected you.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. But wait, you mentioned earlier there might be another suspect involved?
Oh, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Remember those rumors about Gardner's wife being jealous?
Yeah, yeah, of course, the alleged affair and all that.
Well, it's Julian Fellows, the guy who created Downton Abbey, who put forward this theory.
Whoa, hold on. Downton Abbey guy. What does he know about murder?
Well, he's a history buff, and he's fascinated by this case. He suggests that Mrs. Gardner, consumed by jealousy over the whole thing, might have just snapped.
Whoa, you're saying she might have murdered Rose herself to get back at her husband.
It's a possibility. Fellows argues that it would fit the social dynamics of the time. Imagine the pressure on her, the shame and humiliation of her husband's alleged infidelity.
Yeah, in those days, that kind of scandal could ruin your reputation.
Exactly. It was a huge deal back then. So in that context, her potential motive becomes kind of tragically clear, right?
Wow, this is blowing my mind. So now we've got two potential suspects, the alleged lover and the scorned wife. It's like a real-life whodunit.
It is, isn't it? And without a confession or a definitive verdict, we're left to examine the evidence and draw our own conclusions.
Which is what makes this whole thing so fascinating, right? We get to play armchair detective, try to piece together what really happened over 100 years ago.
Exactly. It's like we're time travelers stepping back into that era and trying to solve the puzzle alongside the investigators.
This is awesome. So who do you think did it? Was it Gardner or his wife? I'm leaning towards the wife myself. It just seems more, I don't know, dramatic.
It's a tough one. Both theories have their merits. On one hand, you've got Gardner, the alleged lover, with the rumors and maybe some circumstantial evidence against him.
And on the other hand, you've got his wife driven to a desperate act by jealousy and societal pressure. It's like a classic love triangle gone wrong.
Right. And remember, this all happened in a time when social pressure was immense, especially for women. Imagine the scrutiny Mrs. Gardner would have faced if her husband's affair had been confirmed.
Yeah, she could have been totally ostracized by the community.
Exactly. And in that context, her actions might make a bit more sense, even if they were extreme.
It's like this whole quiet village was sitting on a powder keg, just waiting to explode, all these secrets and lies and forbidden desires just bubbling under the surface.
And then bam, murder. It's like something straight out of a novel.
Totally. But let's not forget about Rose Harsent. She's the real victim here. Her life was cut short, her story overshadowed by all this scandal and speculation.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the whodunit, but we should remember that a young woman lost her life.
Do you think there's any hope of ever finding justice for her after all these years? Like, could modern forensic techniques help shed some light on this mystery?
It's actually possible if any physical evidence from the crime scene was preserved, even tiny traces of DNA could potentially be extracted and analyzed.
Wow, really? That would be amazing.
Yeah, we could compare those DNA profiles to living descendants of Gardner or his wife, potentially uncover new evidence and provide some groundbreaking insights.
That would be incredible to finally solve this case after all these years, give Rose's family some closure, and finally reveal the truth.
It would be a remarkable feat, but even if modern science can't give us all the answers, exploring this case, delving into the historical records and all the different theories, is still a fascinating journey in itself.
I agree. It's like we're not just trying to solve a crime, we're trying to understand a different time, a different way of life, and the complexities of human relationships in a world so different from our own.
And as you delve deeper into this case, as you weigh the evidence and consider all the possibilities, remember this. The Peasenhall burger is more than just a whodunit. It's a reflection of human nature, of our capacity for love and betrayal, for jealousy and revenge, and for the secrets that can hide beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives.
It's wild to think that after more than 100 years, this case, the Peasenhall murder, it still has this grip on us. Like it just won't let go.
It's the kind of story that just gets under your skin, right? A brutal crime, wizards of an affair, the trials, and then that lingering question, did they even get the right person?
Exactly. And what's so cool about it is like, it's not just about figuring out who did it. It's like we've been on this journey back in time.
Totally. We've gotten a glimpse into life in 1902, the small village, the social pressures, the way rumors could just explode and take over.
Imagine if they'd had social media back then. Twitter would have been blowing up.
Oh, can you imagine the hashtags, the online sleuths, everyone weighing in with their theories?
It would have been crazy. But even without all that, the Peasenhall murder, it was huge news back then. Newspapers ate it up. People couldn't get enough of it.
It was like their version of a true crime podcast, right? Everyone following along, trying to figure out the truth.
And then there were those trials, two of them, both ending with hung juries, and then that nolle prosequi, which basically means they just gave up on the case.
It makes you wonder about the legal system back then, how much harder it must have been to get a conviction.
And of course, the biggest question of all, who actually killed Rose Harsent? Was it Gardner, caught up in this whole web of lies? Or was it his wife, pushed to the edge by jealousy and everything?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the fact that we might never know for sure, that's part of what keeps us coming back to these historical mysteries.
We get to be the detectives, sift through the evidence, try to connect the dots. It's like a puzzle, but with real people and real stakes.
And even if we never find that one missing piece, the journey itself, the exploration, that's what makes it all so rewarding.
Totally. So to all our listeners out there, if you're as fascinated by this case as we are, go check it out. There's tons of info online, old newspaper articles, books, even some documentaries.
It's a rabbit hole you can really get lost in, but trust me, it's worth it.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on another deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the twists and turns of the Peasenhall murder. And until next time, keep those detective minds sharp.